Hello, welcome to video 3 of the Make Art Your Way series. And this one is about art materials, just the basics. We're going to go through a list of art materials and talk about the features of each one. Just know that you don't have to buy everything that we're going to talk about here today, especially if you're just beginning. It might seem, kind of daunting to see this big list of art supplies, but you could just start with one thing, or you could start with what you have. We just want to make sure that you know about what's out there and what's doable and reachable. And we'll get started in just a second here. I'm going to share my screen and get our presentation ready. Okay, Make Art Your Way, video 3, basic art materials. First thing to think about is, where will you make your art? You need to have a place that is comfortable for you. It has enough room to make art. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big place in your home, but you can see here, this is a relatively small workspace, but it does have a work surface. It has lights, drawers for storage, a place for flat paper. You could see the stack of paper on top of that drawer, segmented drawer there. A jar or cup to hold brushes, and a place to let your art dry after it's painted or put together. And the photograph is showing a simple, small art space with the storage and the lights, and a painting on the wall. It's a self-portrait, a couple of fun masks, and some work in progress maybe on the work surface there. So where we make art, find a good place in your space to do so. Basic art materials. If you're going to make art your way, these are some basic materials that will work. You can really use anything you already have or different materials. I would like to say, though, that quality art materials do make a difference. Even if you are using found objects, mixed media, or assemblage, which is putting things together, if you add color to those things, good paints are important. It helps to give your art a finished look. And the picture is actual assemblage art by our artist Thor, and it is made of small objects like popsicle sticks and pom-poms and tiles with letters on it, glued onto a flat surface, and lots of paint applied, and lots of layers of glue, things like that. There's some flowers in there and some little pieces of fabric. And this would be like some assemblage that has a heavy texture on it, but it does spell his name, Thor. So this would be assemblage art. Again, it's important to use the best quality art materials that you get your hands on. And then if you're using other things, that's fine. I guess the best way to put it is to use enough of them to make it impressive. Somebody sees something made with craft items, you really want to make it impressive and say you're making a statement with those items. You'll have a lot of them. Maybe you'll have some paint and some brush strokes and things like that to show your intention. So talking about paint, I would like to mention acrylic paint because it is water-based. It doesn't have a bad smell. Generally, acrylic paint is non-toxic. This particular brand is an entry-level, relatively inexpensive type of acrylic paint. It's a good one to start with. Acrylic paint, of course, cleans up with water. No chemicals needed to clean up. It dries really hard and it is permanent. It is like a plastic layer. So whatever you get acrylic paint on is going to stay. So that means that you need to rinse your brushes really well, or any other tools that you're using to paint with. Maybe get yourself a smock. Protect your clothes from acrylic paint because it will not come out once it's dry. Um, like I said, this particular brand is pretty good to try. It is a reasonable price and it's good quality paint. And by that, I mean it is paint that has a lot of the color in it, the actual color, the pigment. So if you see really cheap paints, they may look okay in the bottle or tube, but they really don't have a lot of color in them. So that means if you try to mix them or make a thick layer, it's going to be hard because it'll look thin and the colors might not work the way you expect when you're mixing them for the really, really cheap paints. To that particular set, I would also add a couple other colors that we had the basic set shown just before with black, white, blue, yellow, an ochre, which is like a kind of a brownish yellow, and a primary red. This is called alizarin crimson. It is a different kind of red that when you mix it, it has kind of a purpley edge to it. So I would add alizarin crimson to my set. I would also add ultramarine blue. That will help mix a little bit better for translucent colors where you're adding blue more than the primary blue that comes in the set. It actually has white in it, so it's interesting. It might not work just like the color wheel works, but ultramarine blue will. Cadmium yellow is a great warm yellow, very vibrant. That's really good for color mixing as well. And cadmium red, which is more like the warm red, like the orangey red. And that will give you good results if you try to mix according to the color wheel or just playing around mixing colors. You'll tend to get a truer orange or other color that you're working with when you add cadmium red. And of course, phthalo green. Phthalo green is a very deep green. It will work better with color mixing as well and just rounds out your possibilities for greens on your first palette. Another thing I talk about a lot with making art your way when we use acrylics is acrylic medium. So acrylic medium is acrylic paint, but it's actually clear. It looks white in the bottle, and it looks white when you pour out some, but it does dry clear. And the great thing about it is that it helps make your paint layers translucent when you need that. And you can do that anytime you need to, but especially with your mixed media or maybe your collage, if you're working on that, it really helps to keep colors from getting too muddy. So you can work with what they would call like a glaze of color, a little bit of paint in a larger amount of medium will get you that. I like to use matte medium all throughout the painting until it's done. The reason for that is because when the painting's not done, when you see that it's not shiny, like it doesn't have a gloss on it, and your gloss will actually be there for you at the final stage. For synthetic bristles, we recommend a set of about 10. Their shapes are called flat, round, angle, filbert, and detail round. Acrylic brushes have long handles. Inexpensive brushes are okay. Watch out for bristle shedding. If they start to shed, then you'll have to pitch that brush and start using another one because you don't want fibers in your paint. For canvas, it's possible to buy pre-stretched canvas, which is already put onto the canvas stretchers, and make sure that it is pre-primed as well. Super easy to get your hands on, not too expensive. It'll be in standard sizes. Best idea for stretch canvas is to start out on the smaller size something like maybe 8 by 10 or 10 by 12. The gallery wrap ones are real nice because you can paint on the sides too. For canvas panels, they're a little bit of a less expensive alternative. It is great for when you want to practice painting until you feel ready to use a wrapped canvas. They're low in cost, and you can still keep them if you like your painting. Plastic egg cartons are pretty great to use for a palette. If you buy food items and they have plastic, they're in a plastic container, especially if it has segments like an egg carton, don't throw it away. It makes a great acrylic palette. You can use it and rinse it, and if it gets too covered in paint, you can throw it away. You can always get more of those. Chances are you have food items that, when it's empty, you can use it in your art studio. Just clean it out and use it. Same thing for things like a water cup. Don't throw away the plastic containers from food. Clean them and use them for water to paint with or to rinse brushes.